Evening, my friends. Shapunja Lapo. I trust the grand. I want to share something quite intimate now. Hoping that somebody can identify and somebody can understand and perhaps we can share. Yeah, but hasn't got to figure like AP thought. No? I've struggled in the alcohol dependence and addiction for most of my life, and it was always my fault. I guess it still is my fault. But it took me a very long time. It was always my fault, and I've always taken responsibility with it's my fault. I've never made alcoholism somebody else's fault, or um, I've never blamed anybody for it until Sengrot obviously trying to identify the source of how did I become an alcoholic. Like ngithatha blend. Why mina? Why wonke omunye umuntu aphuza kahle? Why mina ngi-alcoholic? Why mina ngine-relationship embi kanje notshwala? Why mina ngiqale ukuphuza ngiyintwana and ngaba so comfortable in my drinking that it ended up becoming a dependence and an addiction. And then it pointed me to one common denominator, if I can call it that, where in my family we had an alcoholic. My father was a very toxic alcoholic. He was a very violent alcoholic, and my dad was struggling. He struggled a lot with alcohol. God rest his soul. I loved my father with all my heart. He was my hero. He had a lot of positives. Alcohol was unfortunately his downfall, and for most part, my father used alcohol to deal with whatever issues that he had in life. Yeah, but later on in my life, I developed an alcohol dependence because my home environment was so toxic, with an alcoholic father, an emotionally unavailable mother, and a home environment very cold and toxic. And everyone had their different ways. My younger brother, for instance, who you guys know maybe from TV, and he seems like he's always been the blue-eyed boy, a perfect person. He was perfect. Even to me, I looked up to my brother as if he was my role model, and as if he was, even older than me, because he was perfect and was presented to be perfect from the get-go. I was always the faulty one, the black sheep, my mistakes. So, but that's not the angle. This is the angle here. I was trying to identify with how did I develop an alcohol dependence. So for most part, my home environment was very violent because my parents didn't have a smooth relationship or a marriage. They were always fighting. There was always fighting and cleaning. And at some point, I had to step in as the older son, or to try to protect the old lady from my father's abuse, the physical abuse, And I didn't do it on my own. My mother asked me to protect her every time when my father tries to abuse her. And when I started to intervene, my father and I then started to have differences because my father now saw me as umuntu ophakamayo la endlini, two bulls in one crawl. He always used to say that can never be two bulls in one crawl. Yeah, two bulls in one crawl. Too many chiefs, but not enough Indians. And I ended up having a bad relationship with my father for protecting my mother against my father's physical abuse, for whatever differences that they had, whether it's infidelity or whether it's financial, whatever couple problems that they had. I would get involved as a son, trying to protect my mother from my dad's physical abuse. My dad was very big. He was a big, strong man. Tamalami he had huge hands. When my dad used to hit my mom, then esitradini sethu bese kwaziwa ukuthi kule ndlu kuhlala kunamawoza. So it was indlu eyaziwayo ukuthi laphana namaphoyisa waseKliptown bebazi ukuthi le ndlu leyanathi. There's always fighting. Although there's some cheese boy skills in my private schools, later on my government schools, talk about blazer, nice toys, nice clothes. But the home environment, unfortunately, for whatever reason, the parents were not getting along well, and as a result, it trickles down to us children. So my parents fights. I had to get involved at a young age, because at a very young age I had to be the protector, and ultimately my father identified me as the problem, because I would stop him from abusing my mother and abusing me when I was a teenager, because he abused me so much when I was still young and couldn't fight for myself. So my father was not the kind of guy that would take defeat lying down. Would second daughter in his house that can stand up to him. So my father continued to fight with me for most part, trying to reclaim his place, trying to be the man of the house and rule his household as he pleases. And I had been summoned by my mother to protect her and the rest of the family from my father's tyranny. So I would do that, and that sent me in direct loggerheads with my father. So I used to fight with my father a lot. And when that started to become the norm, everyone stood back and said, I am fighting with my father, and I'm this disobedient, young, out of control teenager that fights with his father, that hits his father. I never used to hit my father. I used to protect my family from my father. My 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 brother was sent to boarding school to salvage, to protect him, brother. Not salvage. No, he was not there was no damage done to him as yet. So he was sent to boarding school. My sister left home, but for most part, when she was a teenager, she never used to allow to be in that environment that is toxic. So she had her ways of protecting herself by being unavailable, and my mother did the same. I couldn't. I was that one that just couldn't run away or hide from it. So I took alcohol from as a way of coping. That's how I became an alcoholic. Fast forward, I'm an alcoholic today. I'm dealing with it on my own. Everybody else seems to be surprised with why I do have an alcohol dependence. I developed an alcohol dependence when I was still very young. Trying to cope with my very toxic home environment. People will say I'm lying. I never used to protect my siblings or my mother from my father, or my father from anything that he needed protection from, or anyone. Everyone will deny that I was the protector. But I was. I had to position myself in that there, because I was put. In fact, I didn't position myself there. I was positioned in even though I was 10 years old or 13 years old or whatever. I remember there's one thing that I want to share with you guys. Do you know what it's like to be the less favored? I remember one thing, being called Kaine. Kaine. You know, I never used to know what Kaine is. I didn't identify with that because I never used to. Still till this day, I don't read the Bible. Although I've got Bibles, I just use that for cosmetics because I'm a Christian nonetheless. But I'm not a Bible fanatic. Kaine. And my mom is sitting on my chest, and she's beating hard on me as hard as she could. And she's barely dressed, she's barely clothed, and she's wearing a night dress, and she's beating hard on me, and she's saying Ukain, because I was fighting with my brother, and I was probably at the time 13, and he was probably 8 or 10 or somewhere there, 9. I'm asking myself, did I deserve that, Marmafito? Did I deserve that treatment? What could have a 13-year-old about that? I went to psychologists, I went to therapists, and it was all my fault. There's something wrong with me. Going to ama-shrinking iy'ntwana mfethu primary school phansi phezulu ekhaya kuhlala kuyi-gugugu barakhi igubhugubu umama bekayibiza kanjalo. Mayicala esipila out in the streets, I have to be the one that is leading from the front in the middle of the night when we want to mele siyothola i-refuge kubo makhelwane every single weekend. Hey, bafethu, you know, I acknowledge ukuthi I'm damaged goods and I'm trying to recover, fix myself, and I know it's banning. I'm the only one who's vocal about it, and I know you guys are sitting on top of my secrets, family secrets, but why are we pretending that these things didn't happen, and we try to blame and shame people that are struggling as a result of what happened? Like, I've got scars, and when I show my scars, I'm being pitiful, attention seeking, I'm a bright, I'm ungrateful, I am looking for attention on the internet. Does it not make sense? Am I crazy? What is it? Can somebody at least tell me good? Knowing there's nothing I can do for the people that hurt me to acknowledge the fact that they did and accept and try to make amends. We understand it is flopel. You know, I've never ever done anything bad to anyone and not try to make amends and acknowledge and accept and inform. And I implore anyone who I've ever wronged to challenge me on this fact. I will never deny anybody the apology if I've wronged you. But I mean, no one has ever really acknowledged my pain, and no one has ever acknowledged the fact that as I decided to be alcoholic, to be a problematic teen. Instead, when I was a problematic teen, the people that I was protecting, the people that I loved the most, stood with people that went against me and celebrated me as a failure, as a teenager. When your own parent mfethu ahamba nabantu abakuzondayo bahlangane ngalokuthi wena umuntu ungarayithanga. The reason why I'm sending this message and I'm gonna post it is that I want us to boldly and openly show our scars and stop hiding our pain, our fears, our imperfections, and try to always appear as if we owe the world to be perfect. There are those that have better lives. There are those that are happier, are more blessed with better lives. Instead of trying to measure up and try to deny ourselves that we still desperately need healing, perhaps that way we will find healing because we won't ignore the fact that we are hurt. And maybe if we don't find healing from the people that hurt us, we will find healing from each other. Just from me knowing that I'm not alone. Unlike me, always looking at myself and seeing myself as being ridiculous and pathetic every morning when I wake up feeling let down. Knowing that there are others like me out there would be comforting. Let's be from my heart to you. And I just wanted to share. I hope we're going to somebody who can identify with this, and perhaps let's start a movement where we can share our vulnerabilities and help each other heal. It's hard as hell, I know. Good evening.